Discover the amazing transformation of this grandma. A heartwarming, touching, life-changing journey. Helen stood on the rickety old steps of the community center, her heart pounding with excitement. At 75, she was a whirlwind of energy, a whirlwind of passion, fueled by the love for her town and the memory of her late husband, a proud veteran. The center, once overflowing with laughter and vibrant gatherings, was fading. "This is not the place to wither away," she declared. With determination gleaming in her eyes, she envisioned the walls filled with joyous gatherings once again. As Helen delved into her mission, she faced waves of resistance from a group of younger residents. They saw her traditional ways as barriers. "Change is coming, Grandma," they shout. Stung, but she pressed on. Helen knew resources were tight, and she could ignite a spark of revival in their close-knit community. She remembered her husband's stories of the town coming together in tough times. It was in moments like these that the strength of unity shone brightest. Then disaster struck. A fierce storm ravaged their little Midwestern town. As winds howled and rain battered the streets, Helen sprang into action. With her strong, steady hands, she reached for the phone, called her neighbors, and rallied the community. Yet doubt fell heavy. Some scoffed at her age, whispering, "Can she really lead us?" The weight of those doubts settled on her shoulders, compressing her spirit until she felt small and vulnerable. Yet her spirit wouldn't break. She organized a fundraiser, but as she stood in front of an almost empty hall, her heart sank. Her voice quivered as she greeted the meager turnout. After all those years of serving and loving, was this her end? Were her efforts in vain? Tears brimmed in her eyes, blurring the bright posters that adorned the walls. The dream of her vibrant community slipped further away. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when despair felt insurmountable, Helen caught sight of familiar faces, the ones who had grown up in her arms and said her famous cookie recipe tasted just like home. They rallied around her, inspired by her unwavering resolve. All ages began knitting together their ideas, talents, and love into something beautiful. A grassroots movement that's what it was. Neighbors united under a shared cause, crafting a brighter vision for their community that harmonized old and new. As Helen watched the energy swirl around her like a warm embrace, hope flickered back to life inside her. They were all in this together. But beneath the excitement sat an unyielding question. Could this newly revived community truly accept her lead? Would they recognize the value of experience as equally vital as ambition? As they began to share ideas and create all under Helen's guiding hand, dark clouds still loomed, unseen yet palpable. What would happen next for this spirited grandmother and her beloved town? The journey had just begun, and so much hung in the balance. Helen woke early the next day, the sun's gentle light spilling through her kitchen window. It felt like a new dawn, filled with possibility. She sipped her coffee, letting the warmth seep into her. The moment of connection last night with her neighbors recharged her spirit. They were not just faces from her past. They were pieces of a puzzle she desperately needed. The weight of her unresolved fears lingered in her mind, whispers of doubt echoing. Could she really lead them? But as she thought about those smiling faces, confidence began to bloom. They spoke with excitement, brought ideas bursting forth like flowers in spring. A community garden, a talent show, a storytelling night, each idea stitched their hearts closer together. Determined, Helen grabbed her notebook. She pinned down a plan. She would host weekly meetings at the center to discuss ideas and gather contributions. She imagined the laughter, the music, the shared meals. It could be a comeback that would transform their center once more into a joyous hub. But she also needed to identify the talent amongst them, the artists, the musicians, the cooks. This was about everyone working together. With a deep breath, Helen stepped into the daylight. The air felt electric with promise. She walked to the community center, a bit faster than usual, her mind racing with possibilities for their first meeting. The rickety steps creaked beneath her feet but felt steadier than ever. She was ready to open the doors wide, not just to the hall, But to the wealth of ideas waiting to be shared as the first gathering approached, Helen felt nerve knots forming in her stomach. Would her neighbors come again? What if it turned out to be another disappointment? But she shook off the dark thoughts, recalling those who rallied around her the previous night. She prepared the room, setting out chairs, hanging colorful banners, and filling a table with her famous cookies. It always helped to sweeten the deal. The hour arrived, and the first proud faces appeared. One by one they streamed in, until the hall buzzed with anticipation. Laughter filled the air, warm and inviting. Helen smiled, watching children play and adults mingle. It felt like a reunion, a melding of years and stories. She stood before them, heart racing. Welcome. Together, we're going to bring the spirit of this place back to life. Her voice rose above the conversations, gaining momentum. Shy smiles transformed into nodding heads. Helen felt the energy shift again, pulling them into a collective vision as ideas began popping up like popcorn. Helen couldn't help but marvel. The younger residents, those who once dismissed her, spoke passionately about what they dreamed. They saw her as a mentor, not a barrier. Yet just as hope flooded Helen's heart, a reminder of their fragility settled beside it. Would excitement alone be enough? Amidst the buzz, a voice cut through, a newcomer. A young woman challenging, but what if we fail? Silence engulfed the room. Helen's heart sank. She could feel tension crackle, the dread of uncertainty weighing heavily. In that moment, Helen realized that the words spoken, like seeds in the wind, could either blossom or wither. She had to respond, to unify their hopes and fears into a shared promise. Would she rise to this new challenge? Could she ignite courage in her community just when it was needed most? The stakes felt high, and as she looked around at those eager faces yet uncertain hearts, she took a deep breath, ready to speak. What she said next would either pull them together or push them apart. What would come from Helen's lips in the face of adversity? Failure is just a part of the journey, Helen began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. Every great endeavor has its ups and downs. But what matters most is that we're trying together. The tension in the room shifted, a slight breeze of reassurance fluttering through the crowd. Faces that were once skeptical began to reflect renewed curiosity and openness. Helen seized this moment, leaning into their anticipation. We're not just here to succeed or fail. We're here to learn, to connect, and to grow as a community. A tall man with salt and pepper hair raised his hand. What if we find joy in the process? Even if we stumble? His question hung in the air, a hopeful proposition that chimed with the collective heart of the room. Yes, Helen exclaimed, her heart warming as she grasped the opportunity. Let us celebrate the effort. Imagine if we came together, enjoyed our time, embraced our quirks and shared our stories. Even if things don't go as planned, we will create something beautiful. Nodding heads and murmurs of agreement filled the space around her. The energy was shifting like a feverish dance. She felt the crowd's fears melting away, transforming into something deeper, something hopeful. Let us start small, she urged, her passion lighting up the atmosphere. How about we make a list of what we love about our community, our strengths, our talents? And from there we can see how to use those strengths to support each other. A young girl perched on her father's shoulder shouted, I love the pumpkin patch. Let us have a pumpkin festival. With games and food. Gasps and cheers erupted, and laughter filled the hall. Yes, Helen encouraged, and we can have storytelling under the stars, art shows and maybe even a bake sale. We could raise money and have fun at the same time. Each suggestion was met with enthusiastic applause, the room buzzing with newfound energy. Amidst the joy, a voice chimed in again. It was the newcomer, her brow furrowed. But what if we end up fighting about things? What if we don't agree? That is okay, Helen responded, leaning forward. Disagreements don't have to tear us apart. They can help us understand each other better if we respect everyone's opinions. We're stronger together, in all our differences. She was surprised at her own words. There was an unexpected wisdom spilling forth. The faces around her seemed to reflect a moment of revelation, a connection forged between them through vulnerability. As the meeting flowed on, ideas blossomed into plans. Residents began volunteering talents they hadn't shared before. A woman with a passion for cooking planned to lead a series of cooking classes. A retired music teacher wanted to start a community choir. Their conversations built a tapestry of dreams and unity. Yet, amid the excitement, Helen felt a shadow pass through her heart. What if the weight of these new expectations felt too heavy to bear? They were filled with hope, but was she capable of leading them through uncertainty? The pressure threatened to coil tightly around her thoughts, but she shook off the clouds as the night drew to a close. Helen stood at the front of the room, a cherished flicker of hope igniting within her. Let us give ourselves room to breathe, to create. Her smile brightened the atmosphere. We will support each other and navigate this journey together. Each meeting will bring us closer. With spirited applause echoing, Helen felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. She believed in them, in this dream bright and colorful before her. But little did she know, trials awaited on their horizon. The meeting ended, but as Helen collected her belongings, she noticed someone lingering at the door, a young girl whose eyes brimmed with tears. But what happens if no one shows up next time? Her voice quivered, a simple question laden with fear. Dread twisted in Helen's chest. Chaos could still unravel all their efforts. How would she reassure her? How could she take the little girl's fear and transform it into hope? As the others filtered out, Helen realized that the true challenge was just beginning. Would she find the strength to keep that flicker alive against the rising tide of doubt? Helen knelt down to the girl's eye level, her heart thudding in her chest. She could see the uncertainty etched into the child's face, those big tear-filled eyes searching for assurance. I know it feels scary right now, she gentled, her voice as warm as the fading sunlight streaming through the hall's windows. But let us focus on the excitement we all felt today. What if next time we all show up and bring friends? Wouldn't that be amazing? The girl's frown began to soften, the corners of her mouth twitching into a tentative smile. You think they will come? I do, Helen replied, feeling a spark of determination ignite within her. If we all want this to happen, we must believe in our dream together. Think about how much fun we'll have at the pumpkin festival. People will share stories and laughter. The girl nodded slowly, her small hands clutching onto Helen's arm like a lifeline. Can I help make a sign? Maybe it will make people want to come. Absolutely. Helen beamed. What a brilliant idea. We can put it up around the neighborhood to spread the word. Calmness settled over the girl, the glimmer of hope swirling between them. Okay, let us do it. After reassuring the child, Helen stepped out into the cool night air, the chill nipping at her cheeks. She took a deep breath, embracing the quietness around her. Despite the excitement from earlier, doubts lingered like clouds hovering on the horizon. Was she really ready for this monumental task? Each step felt heavier than the last as she walked home, her mind racing between ideas and worrying thoughts. Once inside, she brewed a cup of chamomile tea, hoping to soothe her restless spirit. As she sipped, she glanced at the peeling wallpaper, memories flooding her mind. This house had been a sanctuary, filled with the laughter of children and the camaraderie of neighbors sharing moments over backyard barbecues. They had grown together, children became adults, dreams had flourished as had failures, but they all belonged to this patch of earth. Suddenly, a plan sprouted in her mind. Helen grabbed a notepad and began to jot down every idea that came to her: activities for the festival, ways to connect with neighbors, and fun initiatives to bring everyone together. As the pen scratched swiftly across the paper, her ambition grew brighter. Yet, a question flickered at the edge of her consciousness. What if her ideas didn't resonate? What if people stayed in their homes, hesitant to join in? She craved connection deeply, and the idea of rejection felt like a cold draft seeping through her open window. On impulse, she picked up her phone and texted a few friends, inviting them over for an impromptu planning meeting. I need your help. Let us brainstorm ideas. I know we can make this work. The response was immediate. Within minutes, replies lit up her screen, filled with excitement and enthusiasm. Count me in. I'll bring snacks. Relief washed over her, and warmth blossomed in her heart. She smiled to herself, knowing they would tackle the unknown together as the night wore on. Helen couldn't shake the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, the community wouldn't let her down after all. Maybe they would all join hands, navigate fears, and turn them into something extraordinary. The next day, as she busily prepared for the gathering, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. There was a fierce determination dancing in her eyes, and for the first time, she felt the stirrings of hope overshadow doubt. But even as she prepped, A nagging question tugged at her mind. Would they face the conflicts she had worried about? What if the heat of passion ignited disagreements instead of collaboration? The sun dipped low, casting shadows across her kitchen. Helen knew that soon, she'd have to confront the most crucial challenge, yet bringing all their dreams into alignment. With a gentle sigh, she straightened her shoulders, ready to take the plunge. But little did she know, an unexpected surprise was lurking in the shadows. The doorbell rang, jolting Helen from her thoughts. She jumped slightly, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nerves. Folding her arms, she opened the door to find a familiar face: Rachel, one of her closest friends. The moment Rachel stepped inside, she breathed out a warm, easy laugh that instantly eased Helen's tension. "Hey Helen, I brought cookies," Rachel exclaimed, her arms laden with a large plate piled high with warm, gooey chocolate chip cookies. The comforting scent wafted through the air, filling the space with an inviting aroma. "Perfect. Just what we need to fuel our creativity," Helen replied, her smile growing wider. Soon after, the rest of the crew trickled in, a mix of familiar faces. David, with his boundless energy, and Liz, whose calm demeanor always grounded the group, both arrived shortly after Rachel. Helen could feel the momentum shift. Their laughter, stories, and shared glances filled the kitchen with life and reassurance. "All right, team," Helen began, her heart swelling with gratitude for the support. "Today we're going to brainstorm ideas for the pumpkin festival. I want everyone to pitch in. It'll be our project together." The conversation kicked off with a flurry of excitement as each person contributed ideas. They bounced visions off each other, laughing as they imagined hayrides, homemade treats, and games that would bring kids and parents together. Ideas flowed like the cookies melting in their mouths. But as they dove deeper into discussions, Helen noticed a shift. Liz raised an eyebrow. "What if we run into issues? What if not everyone is on board with, well, everything?" The room fell silent and Helen's heart sank. What if Liz was right? What if the dream they were envisioning began to unravel? David chimed in before the doubt could fester. It's okay to disagree. We're a team. Conflict can be a good thing. It helps us grow. Look at us right now. We're here together, ready to make something beautiful." Rachel nodded, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Exactly. We're all friends. Let us make sure everyone feels included, and we'll tackle any bumps in the road together." The mood lifted, and Helen felt the warmth of their camaraderie flood her spirit. By the time the clock struck 6, they had crafted a rough plan that felt undeniably solid. They had even decided to create a big sign, just like the girl had suggested, to announce the festival. As they cleaned up the kitchen together, talking and laughing, Helen's heart swelled with joy. But amidst the laughter, a different noise made her pause: a commotion outside. Curious, she stepped onto the porch just in time to see a cluster of neighbors gathered in front of her house, murmuring to each other. They had noticed the vibrant energy within, their expressions curious yet skeptical. Clearing her throat, Helen stepped closer to the group, feeling a surge of determination. "Hi everyone." She waved, her heart thudding in her chest. Would they share the same dreams? Would they join the fun? A hesitant silence replied, tinged with uncertainty. But just before she could say more, one of her neighbors, a woman known for her sharp tongue, broke through the tension. "What's all this about?" Helen held her breath. The moment of truth was upon her. Would this be the spark that ignited her ambitions? Or would it dim the flickering flame of hope? As she prepared to share her vision, an unexpected face emerged within the crowd. As the crowd parted, Helen's breath caught in her throat. There stood Mrs. Hargrove, the elder of the neighborhood, a woman whose reputation for being both wise and fiercely opinionated preceded her. Her silver hair glinted in the late afternoon sun, and her eyes, sharp yet kind, held a hint of curiosity that made Helen's heart beat faster. "Helen, I hope you're not planning too much mischief with these festivities," Mrs. Hargrove said with a teasing smile, but Helen could feel the tension lurking beneath the surface. "We like to keep things simple around here. What do you have in mind?" Swallowing hard, Helen searched for the right words, feeling the weight of the moment. "We're organizing a pumpkin festival," she started, her voice gaining strength. "It's a chance for everyone to come together, share in the fun, and celebrate the season. We'll have games, hayrides, and plenty of delicious food. A murmur rippled through the group and Helen glanced at her friends behind her, their faces a mix of hope and urgency. She needed Mrs. Hargrove's support. The older woman was influential if she didn't approve. It could be the end of their hopes before they even began. Mrs. Hargrove raised an eyebrow, her expression softening somewhat. And where do these pumpkins come from? Are we talking about your run-of-the-mill grocery store ones? Or will you make an effort to connect with the local farms? Taking a deep breath, Helen replied, we want to source them locally. We'll reach out to nearby farmers. We want this festival to be community-oriented, a way to support local businesses and create lasting memories. A hint of a smile crept onto Mrs. Hargrove's face. Well, that's promising. But, she paused, a glint of mischief in her eye, the last pumpkin festival we had, well, let us just say it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. Well, this will be different. Rachel interjected, stepping up beside Helen confidently. We're planning unique events, lots of activities for kids, and even some fun contests for adults. Helen felt a rush of pride wash over her as she looked at her friends. They were all in this together. But before she could respond, a voice piped up from the crowd. What about safety? We need to make sure the kids aren't running wild with all these activities. A festival sounds great, but uncontrolled chaos is not. David nodded, addressing the concern. Absolutely. We'll have volunteer coordinators, signs for safety, and we'll make sure to keep things organized. We want it to be fun but safe for everyone. The crowd began to chatter among themselves, weighing the possibilities. Helen could see some faces soften, but others remained skeptical. She realized this was just the beginning. They would have to prove the festival was worth the community's energy and support. Then, just as she was gathering her thoughts for the next rallying point, another figure stepped into view. Tom, the local handyman, who had often clashed with the neighborhood about maintaining the communal space. What if the festival doesn't attract anyone? You could be wasting your time, he said bluntly, shaking his head. Helen's heart sank at his words, but at that moment, she felt something shift inside her. What if they did fail? But they were already trying, and that was something more than he'd ever done. Maybe, she said firmly, looking around at her friends and neighbors. But what if it does bring us all together? What if it sparks connections we didn't know we were missing? Silence fell again, and everyone looked around at one another. In that silence, hope began to take root. Would they take a chance on this vision? Would they unite for something bigger than themselves? As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the gathering, it felt like the answer hung in the balance. And just when the energy began to shift, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the crowd that drew all eyes away. The crowd shifted in unison, their attention drawn to the back where a couple of children had burst forth laughing, each clutching a colorful balloon that danced in the late afternoon breeze. But there was more to the spectacle. A group of teenagers was chasing them, playfully shouting as they tried to snag the balloons, the joyous chaos igniting smiles all around. Helen watched, her heart lifting. It felt as if the festival had already begun, even before it had officially started. Laughter filled the space, enveloping the worried expressions that had haunted the crowd moments ago. The air buzzed now with energy. Perhaps this was the spark they needed. See, Rachel said, nudging Helen with excitement lighting up her eyes. This is exactly what we want. A vibrant community bringing kids and families together. Mrs. Hargrove smiled, nodding slowly as she took in the scene. Her doubt seemed to melt away, replaced by an appreciation for the sheer serendipity of the moment. You might be onto something, Helen, she murmured, her voice softer now, as if she were examining the possibilities. Of course she is. David couldn't help but say. What you see here is just the beginning. We can create this same joy tenfold at the festival. Just then Tom, who had appeared reluctant moments ago, took a step closer, his arms crossed over his chest. He sighed, though it felt less like a groan and more like a ponderous acceptance. Okay, I'll bite, he said begrudgingly. But if this goes sideways, don't expect me to mop up the mess. Kids and balloons, you never know. But before anyone could respond, Helen felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Mrs. Hargrove peering at her with newfound interest. How about we involve the seniors in the community as well? She suggested. They used to share stories during the harvest season, weaving tales about the pumpkins and fall traditions. Maybe they can be a part of the festival? Helen's eyes widened. That's a brilliant idea, she exclaimed. We could have a storytelling booth. It would create a connection across generations. The thought bloomed in her mind like the vibrant colors of autumn leaves, rich and warm. Helen quickly pulled the group together again, excitement radiating off of her. Okay, we have entertainment. We have the seniors on board. But we still need volunteers to help with the logistics. We have a lot to do. Suddenly, the sound of a horn blared through their conversation, dragging their attention back to the street where a small, colorful parade of vintage cars had come into view. Each vehicle was decorated for fall wreaths of orange and yellow leaves adorning their grills, squeals of delight erupting as people recognized some of their neighbors driving by. Now that's a welcome sight. Mrs. Hargrove chuckled, her eyes crinkling with genuine joy. Seems like the universe is telling us it's time to celebrate. As laughter and applause burst forth from the crowd, Helen felt a rush of something she hadn't felt before, hope turning into a tangible possibility. They were creating momentum, pulling together a community that had drifted apart. And then the thought slipped in like a whisper. What if they turned that excitement into something deeper? Something that went beyond just pumpkins and festivities? In that moment of connection, Helen knew they had to dive deeper, to find purpose in the fun they hoped to create. But how? Just as she began to explore that thought, she spotted a familiar face amid the crowd, a woman she hadn't seen in years, someone whose return could change everything. Could this unexpected reunion be the catalyst for something more than a festival? What secrets might unravel if Helen took that bold step? Helen's heart raced as she tried to make sense of the figure moving through the crowd. The face was familiar yet shadowed by time. It took her just a moment to piece everything together. It was Carol, her childhood friend, the girl who had vanished from her life without a trace years ago. Helen felt a wave of warmth and confusion wash over her. Is that really her? Rachel whispered, nudging Helen again, her voice tinged with disbelief. After all this time before Helen could answer, Carol caught her eye and broke into a wide grin, her vibrant laughter piercing through the festive cacophony around them. Helen's surprise turned into an electric thrill. Should she approach? She hadn't known what to expect after all these years, and now here they were, seemingly on the cusp of a great reunion. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, weaving through the throng of festival goers until she stood before Carol. The years melted away as they exchanged smiles, uncertainty giving way to warmth. You look amazing, Helen blurted out, happiness bubbling up inside her. Thanks. You too. It's been way too long, Carol replied, her eyes sparkling with the light of memories and potential. I heard about the festival and just had to come back. It reminds me of our childhood. Remember all those pumpkin carving contests? The nostalgia hit Helen hard, like the scent of cinnamon wafting from one of the festival stalls. Of course, I can't believe how much time has passed. As they articulated their histories, the hours seemed to slip by unnoticed, with laughter softly punctuating their growing connection. Helen felt a chorus of emotions: joy, bitterness, and a longing to bridge the gap of lost years. Just as she considered asking Carol what had really happened all those years ago, the conversation shifted naturally toward the festival, and Carol's enthusiasm surged. I love what you're doing here, she said. The storytelling booth sounds incredible. It's like weaving the community back together, one story at a time. Helen nodded, emboldened. We were hoping to bring everyone closer: seniors, kids, families. Maybe we could even have an old-fashioned pumpkin contest? Carol's eyes widened with excitement. Yes, that would be perfect. I used to love those. As they brainstormed ideas, Helen sensed an urgency building within her. This reunion felt like a chance at something larger. What if we not only share stories but also celebrate all the traditions we had growing up? Yes, Carol's enthusiasm was infectious, lighting a fire in the pit of Helen's stomach. We can even host a memory corner, where people can bring old photos and share their favorite fall memories. An idea started to blossom in Helen's mind, a vision so ambitious and heartfelt that it quickened her pulse. She needed Carol, not just as a friend but as a partner in this endeavor, to revitalize the community's spirit. But underneath the joy a shadow lurked. Helen felt an unshakable curiosity about why Carol had left in the first place. Could the weight of that past somehow mar this newfound connection? Would digging deeper lead to healing or heartbreak? As the colorful balloons swayed softly in the breeze behind them, Helen's thoughts spun in delicate threads, weaving a tapestry of hope, nostalgia, and unanswered questions. She turned to Carol, her smile faltering just slightly. Can we make this festival not just a celebration but a way to come together again? I feel like there's more we need to uncover, and just as that statement hung in the air like the fading notes of music, another unexpected surprise revealed itself. Tom, who had been lurking at the edge of their conversation, stepped forward, his face serious. I think we need to talk about the past and how it connects to the future. Before it all goes too far. What could Tom possibly mean? Tom's words hung between them like a thick fog, pulling Helen's gaze away from Carol. Confusion settled in her stomach, mixing with the excitement of reconnecting. She didn't want to bring darkness into their lively reunion, yet something in Tom's tone demanded attention. Why do you say that? Helen asked, her voice steadier than her heart felt. Tom shifted uneasily, glancing at the bustling festival around them before focusing on Helen. Because the past isn't just a memory for some of us. It impacts our present in ways we don't always see. Carol. She didn't just disappear, there were reasons. Carol's expression shifted, from the bright joy of rekindling friendship to a shadow of discomfort. Helen caught a glimpse of that familiar smile fading as memories of what happened so long ago crept back. Tom, this ain't the time, Carol interjected, a hint of urgency in her voice. We were just having fun. The festival is about celebration. Helen felt torn. She wanted to dive headfirst into the warmth of nostalgia, but sensed an undercurrent of something darker weaving through their long-lost connection. But what happened, Carol? Why did you leave? The crowd swirled around them, laughter mingling with the scent of caramel apples and roasted corn. But for Helen, the noise melted away. All that existed now was the three of them, trapped at a crossroads of past and present. Carol sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. I thought I could handle it on my own. I just didn't think it would hurt anyone. Tom frowned. But it did, didn't it? We all felt it. You can't just ignore it anymore. Helen's heart twisted. The earlier warmth of friendship was now tempered with an edge of tension, and she felt the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. Stepping back slightly, she searched Carol's eyes. We're here now. You don't have to go through this alone. It's okay to share. For a moment the crowd faded entirely, leaving just the soft flickering of festival lights and the gentle rustle of leaves in the cool autumn breeze. Carol's eyes brimmed with unshed tears, and Helen felt a rush of compassion. That bond they had as children was still there, buried but alive, waiting for a chance to resurface. I was scared, Carol whispered. Things happened that I thought would never come back to haunt me. I thought leaving would be a fresh start. The words hung heavy, echoing the silences that followed them. Helen felt more unsure than ever. Maybe it was for a reason that you returned. To heal? Before Carol could respond, the mood shifted again. Rachel appeared, her hands laden with festival treats, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the heaviness in the air. Hey, I thought you guys might want some snacks. What's going on? A quick glance passed among the three friends, electrical yet weighted with unsaid words. Helen could feel the unresolved threads of their past dancing around her, almost tangible, like the flickers of the bonfire lighting up the festival grounds. Just catching up, Tom replied, his voice catching slightly as he cast Carol a glance full of meaning. Right, just catching up, Helen echoed, although her heart raced with the mystery still pressed against her chest. As they resumed their laughter and smiles for Rachel's sake, the festival buzzed around them, yet a sense of anticipation filled the air. Helen realized this couldn't be the end of the discussion. It felt like a door cracked open, revealing both light and shadow. Let us regroup later? Helen suggested softly, looking directly at Carol. I think there's so much we still need to talk about. The promise lingered in the autumn air, a tentative bridge built between their past and the hope for a brighter future. What else would be uncovered when the sun set and they could talk without the noise of the festival? Helen could almost feel the tension of those hidden stories waiting to be told. As laughter carried them back into the festivities, the weight of what loomed ahead was unmistakable. Would they find healing together? Or would the unearthing of truths change everything? The days leading up to the pumpkin festival rushed past in a flurry of excitement and unsteady footsteps. Helen stood at the helm of it all, a mix of elation and anxiety swirling in her chest as the community began to come together in an unexpected way. The once skeptical neighbors were now smiling supporters, throwing themselves wholeheartedly into the preparations, filling bright crates with pumpkins, and decorating the community center with colorful fall leaves. On the morning of the festival, Helen awoke before dawn, the sunlight barely peeking through her curtains, and an electric buzz ran through her veins. Today was the day. Her heart danced, filled with hope. As she brewed her morning coffee, the fragrant steam wrapped around her like a hug, emboldening her spirit. This was their moment. She quickly jotted down last-minute ideas, everything from storytelling spots to impromptu cooking demonstrations where kids would bake cookies with her famous recipe. It needed to be perfect. Arriving at the community center felt like stepping onto a movie set. The laughter of children echoed as bright balloons floated over cheerful booths filled with treats and games. The warmth of the sun matched the swelling excitement in her heart. Helen grinned, taking in the sight of her neighbors working together. Smiles replaced past doubts. Then, as everyone moved into place, she felt a soft tug on her shirt. It was the little girl from the last gathering. This time her eyes twinkled with confidence. "Helen! I made a sign." Helen knelt. Her heart swelled with pride as the girl held up a poster filled with colorful drawings of pumpkins and hearts. "It's beautiful," Helen exclaimed. "You're going to make everyone feel welcome." With her spirits high, Helen took a deep breath, standing tall on the center's makeshift stage. The crowd of families, friends, and neighbors buzzed with excitement. "Welcome, everyone," she called out, her voice clear and radiant. "Together, let us celebrate not just our harvest but the beautiful community we built." Cheers erupted around her. The festival unfolded, a patchwork of joy. Children ran between the booths, faces smeared with frosting from the cookie stand, while older folks exchanged stories around the storytelling corner with warm autumn sunlight playing off their memories. Helen felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Each moment held the laughter of her neighbors' stories intertwining, and friendships reigniting as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the festivities. Helen noticed Carol standing by the old oak tree. The familiar warmth of their childhood friendship flickered, beckoning her over. They exchanged soft smiles, a shared understanding passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges that lay ahead. "Hey," Helen said softly. "Ready to tackle that memory corner?" "Yes," Carol replied, her voice steadier now, filled with conviction. "I think today is just the beginning of many more memories to come." As they stepped into the evening, their conversation flowed easily, laughter punctuating each heartwarming story. They were joined by others, weaving together threads of nostalgia with laughter and understanding. Suddenly, the laughter of children calling out drew their attention. Two boys sprinted towards them, balloons trailing behind them as if echoing the joy all around. And in that moment it hit Helen. Their past might have shadows, but today, under the brightest sky, they were living in possibility. The crowd erupted in applause as the pumpkin contest results were announced. Communities coming together, families cheering, echoing through the crisp fall air. It felt like a rebirth, an awakening, the ties of community stronger than ever, and the whirlwind of joy. Tom stepped forward, his demeanor softened by the day's festivities. He looked at Helen and said, "I underestimated you. This community, it's alive because of you." Helen smiled, realizing that their shared dreams had kindled a fire in their hearts. Here, amongst colorful pumpkins, laughter, and the promise of togetherness, she felt renewed strength coursing through her. This was her family, her community. As night descended, Helen stood side by side with Carol, watching the stars light up the sky. "Maybe we can heal together," Helen murmured. A soft promise hung between them. Carol nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, both sweet and heavy with the weight of years. "Yes, maybe we can." They would honor their past while building something even more beautiful together. As laughter and stories continued to float through the air, Helen understood that the festival had become more than just a celebration of pumpkins. It was a celebration of dreams, of family, and of the power of unity. Amidst the twinkling stars, the heart of the community felt just as bright, filled with endless possibilities, love and hope. And in that sacred moment, Helen knew they had found their way home again. So there you have it. If you were touched by this heartwarming journey, you absolutely need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on even more exclusive stories that will lift your spirit. Hit that like button to support the channel and help us reach more hearts. We want to hear from you too. Comment below about how this story inspired you and what you felt through it. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a little transformation in their lives. Let us spread this warmth together.